percussion.
You do. Can y'all hear me now? Can y'all hear me now? Finna get ready to talk about what I would call white men and intellectual pathology. I posted a video this week highlighting some of my college policy debate accolades, and it brought out a bunch of insecure white men that I think illustrated how intellectual pathology works with white men, specifically when it comes to domination and when it comes to having to conquer and prove themselves. Since I've been on the internet, one of the things that has always brought out all of the roaches when you cut on the lights and they start scattering is when you start to have Black men particularly use a certain verbiage that makes white men feel insecure. And now they got to figure out a way to prove themselves to you or prove themselves to themselves by engaging you in a particular manner. I'm going to give a nice case study to this guy by the name of Kim Higby. You know, I came across one of his videos today. That's one of his old videos of him trying to debate the merits of a video that I made. But just sitting here and thinking about the various ways that Black thought has always been criminalized and thinking about all the various ways that Black thought has been defunded and pushed into the margins. I think that starting from the beginning of this country, we can always think about how Black people being able to read was something that was seen as a threat to the entire plantation. And I think something even now that from Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump to Woodrow Wilson, we see that Black people being able to think for ourselves, being able to be producers of knowledge and not just regurgitators is something that people in power have always seen as being in threat. So I think when it comes to seeing a Black man coming down the timeline and being a little bit, articulate, being able to say what they mean and mean what they say, it brings out a certain, I think some scholars would call it a white psychopathology. You feel me? I love words, and I think that words have been able to give me a way to feel liberated and being able to say what I mean and mean what I say in a way that makes me feel free. And I think that expression of freedom is something that they, don't want to deal with and something they don't like to have. Before I start getting into the different case studies, specifically this one, think about all of the conservative contradictions when it comes to how qualified Black people got to be to get in a position. And think about how the lack of qualifications is seen, especially in this day and age in Trump's America, as a reason why a white person should be able to get a job. You feel me? And don't get me wrong, I have all my structural critiques and criticisms for the way that Barack Obama was able to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm not going to negate the way that accolades and qualifications was used to demonize Obama being in a position, being able to, be the commander in chief of all the drones and all that, you feel me? While also being able to flip it 8 years later and say, yeah, his ability to have no qualifications is in fact what makes him qualified and why I think he's going to be able to drain the swamp. Mark Wayne Mullen, senator of Oklahoma, has just been appointed to lead the Department of Homeland Security. He's a plumber with an associate's degree that has no experience within security, but he's believed to be qualified because of his white skin. As a matter of fact, we've had Trump administrators come out and just say, yeah, we think white men are more qualified. So when you start sitting with white men and intellectual pathology, when you have a world that is structured around your comfort and structured around your development, you always have this type of God complex that believes that anything that you want to conquer and anything that you want to prove is always viable for you to be able to do so, because the world has conditioned you to be a little entitled prick. You see what I'm saying? So even when you start to feel like it's too much representation politically, socially, economically, on the federal, on the state, on the local level, you start to feel like you're a victim, even though white men dominate every industry, every level of government, and they only make up 30% of the country. They make up 99% of who the presidents. So you have all these different ways of how the way and the logic that specifically a bunch of white men conservatives are able to throw is something that's usually very crazy. I'm going to show y'all now the video that kind of inspired today's, I'm going to call it, what I want to call this today, man. I'm going to call it mini lecture, mini illustration. Let's see, share the screen. You know, shout out to everybody that's already viewed this video, but this is, you know what I'm saying, what it is. How I got here.
In your world that no one else probably, something that's a weird flex in your world that no one else probably ever thinks about. I'll go first.
When I was in college, not only was my debate partner and I the first two black people to go undefeated at the NDT exhibition rounds, my debate partner, Rashid Campbell, was the first. Make sure, can y'all hear this? Can y'all hear this? Can y'all hear this? Let me know in the comments. Can y'all hear this? Grand Rising. What's up, niece? Niecey. I mean, my bad, Miss Niecey. What's up, Miss Box Boys? Yes, y'all can hear it. I want to make sure y'all can hear this, man. Because sometimes I know, you know, be technical difficulties. Black top speaker of the national debate tournament ever. And we were some of the top speakers in the country for 2 years in a row. Rashid and I was so good in college policy debate. We're ranked 13 in the decade as a partnership, and we're both ranked in top 20 as individuals through the decade as debaters. And what happened was, after I finished my career as a debater, you see all them trophies? I won an assistant director of debate award and a national championship as the assistant director and coach in the same year. Weird flex, I know, but if you ask about me and my debate partner in the debate streets, they know about us. And I constructed speeches, we rapped and did poetry, and then the rebuttals, oh, we backed up those arguments, baby. Good times, man, good times. So what happened was, oh, I was tripping. So what happened was me being able to post that video across different platforms. It showed that there was a pattern of who had the most to say and who had the most to project. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to how Black intellect is embraced and how it's perceived, I think a bunch of cisgender, Christian, middle-aged white men, middle-class white men, they usually are able to show y'all how America has indoctrinated them to view how Black people are able to, you know, engage in critical thought, engage in being able to say what we mean and mean what we say, where it's always seen as a little bit of a threat. Now I'm finna show y'all somebody right here that is always trying to manufacture Black folks being pissed off at the expense of him. You know what I mean? I'm talking about rage baiting, rage farming. This is what I'm about to, you know what I'm saying? This is some individual right here, but pay attention to the subtle things that he says in response to what I've said, what I've done. And then we're going to get in. I feel like it's going to be educational for us to get more into Israel, Palestine, because this is what this is about. But let me pull it up. It's been a crazy. Depicted in green, had territory in 1917. And as we move through history, that green becomes smaller and smaller. 2.5 million views. 2.5 million views.
This diagram is completely bogus. I'll bring you up to speed. Make sure to follow me here for more. Let's go back to 110 AD. Hadrian's Roman Empire took control of Israel. The Jews living in Jerusalem revolted against the Romans. This caused the Romans to burn the...
So off the bat, we already see, damn, what's going on? So off the bat, we already see that there is a way that time is being manipulated to use a concept that was created in the late 1800s to go back to justify some retelling of history back in Roman times of 100 AD or whatever the hell, you know what I'm saying, where we're talking about. What we know is that when it comes to what has happened, white men particularly believe they can always dictate the timeline of when something starts and when something ends, as well as the legitimacy of how we understand time. What I know is that when it comes to the concept of Zionism, no matter how much they want to go back and try to replay history, no matter how much they want to go back and retell history, Theodore Herzl does not go all the way back to Roman time. No matter how much they try to use divinity to try to justify the existence of the apartheid state, they're not going to be able to erase that Theodore Herzl was an atheist that did not believe in God. But now in 2026, y'all use these bastardized ideas of Judaism. And not saying that Judaism in its whole is bastardized, but saying that the way that Zionists use it is showing you that not only do you have intellectual dishonesty, you have white men that believe they can always fold intellectual pathology to justify their domination. That's what you have right here. You have, no matter what history says, they have the ability to go back and say, hey, this is how I'm going to attribute these identities. And because the Romans fucked over Jews in this time, this justifies, you know what I'm saying, the descendants of Jewish people here in Israel now being able to fuck over Palestinians. These is all of the misnomers, man.
City and expel the Jews from their homeland. Afterwards, Hadrian renamed the land Syria Palestina after the Jews' sworn enemies, the Assyrians and the extinct Philistines, who came from Greece and were not Arab. Skip ahead. Throughout the years, many other empires would conquer this land, many of them being Arab. Naturally, Arab people moved in, not only from those empires, but from Arab empires that preceded them. In the late 1800s, Jewish Zionists decided to start moving back to their ancestral homeland. From 1300 to 1923, the Ottoman Empire had control of this region, but it was
Right now, we're in a war with Iran. A lot of the ways that Israel was able to prophesize what its territory should be, a lot of ways that Israel was able to justify its existence and way it wants to expand the way it wants to is by being able to go back and use the way that Christianity is capitulated in America to make it where people that feel like they need their sovereignty and need their faith can always go by whatever interpretations they can, as many interpretations they can go by damn near when it comes to the Bible, right? Right now we have our people in power that's trying to justify a war with Iran by saying it's a holy war. And what we see right here in this little argument that Cam Higby is trying to roll out to try to justify the genocide of Palestinians, it's the same type of divine framework that says that because we have the right of God on our side, whatever we say and whatever our interpretation is what's actually going on. Because it's also show you like a conservative contradiction or the hypocrisy of democracy that they're able to go back all the way to, 500 BC or 100 AD to start talking about who's the rightful descendants of a land that they now call in Israel that's really Palestine, but they don't have that same energy when it comes to the Chutta or the Cherokee or the Comanche or the Kiowa or the Caddo. To me, settler colonialism has always been able to say that the people that are really the descendants of the settlers are actually the indigenous people. And I feel like that's how they're able to really get along. And I think this is one of the ways, too, that Black thought and Black intellect is always demonized, because once you have the ability to define the phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner, it now gives you the ability to navigate through it, around it, over it. And I feel like a lot of folks don't really like for you to do that shit, Like me understanding settler colonialism gave me the framework to understand that genocide is always going to be trying to be justified by the settler because they believe that their presence in the land is not only like what they believe is their right, they believe it's ordained by God. Zionism is nothing but the Middle East version of the manifest destiny, man. God always comes down to, white people of a European descent and tell them it's their right to own some land. And for some reason, whenever people of color, whether you be Native American, whether you be Palestinian, may you be, West African, East African, if you say that God said this is your land, they always able to take over something else. Always able to say that we can override that because we have a closer claim to God. Right now, we're fighting a war with Iran because Israel wants to expand itself. The Greater Israel Expansion Project. And as a result, because Islamophobia is so structural in this country. It's easy to manufacture consent amongst Americans to say that, hey, we need to be able to go to war with Iran to be able to spread democracy and be able to, fight the war of God, because white men being able to control the production of oil is the ordained way that God wants it to be, and the brown people being able to control the oil is something that's devilish. I'm currently putting together a PowerPoint / little lesson about how many people are lost in the sauce with the idealism of democracy in opposition to the material reality of democracy. And I think in 2026, we come into a real, meeting of what we say it should be ideally and what it actually is materially. And I think it's causing an ideological war here in America, not only amongst liberals, but also amongst Democrats. But also much conservatives and Republicans. I think both sides, the left and the right, are really coming in conflicts with the idea that they have about politics versus the reality that it necessitates. And I think right now, a lot of us be in denial because we have, thousands of years of evidence that says that there is certain ways we view the world that always brings about violence and harm. And there's other ways that we haven't been able to actualize because we're able to say it fails. Because the way that democracy and the CIA and Mossad and, you feel me, whatever hell we call in the secret agency for the English, they always able to go and infiltrate. They always able to go and destabilize. They always able to go and embargo and do a whole bunch of different things to countries to make it where they always on the right side. They always on the side of God, and we know they're on the side of God because mine succeeded and yours has failed. It's also a way I think they're able to indict the way that Black people are able to come up with new ideas politically, socially, economically, because when we start to actualize them, they figure out a way to crush those and then rewrite history and say the reason why niggas can't have anything because we don't have the capacity to build, while erasing the history that every time we start to build, you erase or you come through destruction. To me, this is how Black inferiority operates in America. We're going to say the reason why Black folks are down is because we don't know how to read, because we don't know how to build, because we don't know how to get along, because this is the reason why we can't get nowhere, because niggas do this to each other. And then we will erase all of the ways that Black intellect, Black creative imagination has been able to bring about different cities, different products, different communities, different music genres. To me, this is a part of like white man intellectual pathology that says that even if niggas can create, I believe that I have the intellectual authority to be able to say, this is how we're going to dictate value to your music and to your culture. And this is how we're going to dictate the circulation of it. Like I've been sitting with this idea since Trump been in office that Black people have to work 10 times as hard than white people typically, usually to get half as far as they get. And then I sit with the reality of Mark Wayne Mullen, feel me? Whatever the hell his name is, I just got appointed to be the Department of Homeland Security. He can threaten the individual while sitting as a senator and still be seen as a rational decision maker. Like he still can be seen as a rational decision maker even when he advocates for violence. On presence, our body can be seen in fear, and based off of that alone, we seen as an irrational actor. Some even say that, some of the most dangerous places for a Black body to be is the imagination of white America, especially when it comes to white men, because they have the ability to mobilize their fear and mobilize their emotions that brings about material, impacts, material conclusions. That's usually not in the best way of understanding the life that it's in fear of. I used too many words right there, but we'll be getting into it, man. But right now, America has a marriage with Israel that we all got to come to grips with. And listen, I know that a lot of people might be triggered when you hear Israel because you believe it's the reason why Kamala Harris lost. And if y'all would have just shut the hell up about Israel, she would have won and we would be in this situation. I think that you got to really sit with who sold you that narrative and what information are you lacking, in order for you to come to this very simplified conclusion that we got to leave it alone. I've seen that there was a report that Donald Trump is no longer allowing media to view all of the coffins of the American soldiers that's being sent back to the states to be able to bury. Because so many coffins are now being produced in the name of protecting the political, social, economic interests of Israel at the expense of the American taxpayers and your cousin and your nephew and your brother and them and shit. Now your uncles and them. They just raised the age for recruitment to 42 years old. And they said, we ain't tripping if you have one little marijuana conviction. We still let you come on the office. This is showing you right here that when critical race theory talk about the interest convergence theory, about how, hey, shit ain't gonna be good for black folks unless it's able to benefit white folks first, showing you right here that, hey, when marijuana convictions was easy to be able to, when marijuana convictions was easy to use as a tool of the war on drugs, to be able to say we should not allow too many black folks to get access to this because we don't want to give them these resources. Now we can remove that because we need your body for the war machine. That's crazy to me. But to me, this is all a part of the intellectual pathology of white men. What's good for me ain't good for thee. And it's the reason why throughout history, anytime you've had a black woman, a black man, a gender nonconforming black person, there's always some type of way to be in fear, how we can empower ourselves with critical thinking. Always. It's so American. Right now, I'm going to get back to Cam Higby thing, you know what I'm saying? On the screen, it says, under the Ottoman rule, the inhabitants of Palestine were Ottoman subjects. Those persons known later as Palestinians had no particular legal status under Ottoman rule. As such, a distinct Palestinian people did not exist at the time. The Palestinians constituted a sector of the large Ottoman Empire. When I was in college, I came across these authors by the name of Tuck and Yang. They're two different people, but they wrote something about the academy and how the academy becomes commodified. And they talked about it through the lens of settler colonialism. They gave me this way of talking about how settler colonialism operates by the concept of saying the settlers move to innocence. In the way that settlers and descendants of settlers are able to create narratives and stories that makes themselves be seen as, you know, innocent. Innocent to the way that settlerism has happened and innocent to the way they've benefited from that settlerism. What he's saying right here, what he's trying to argue, is the same thing that white folks used to argue here in America. That, hey, we ain't breaking no laws because the Native Americans, them savages, them indigenous Arabs, Palestinians, they ain't have no laws. There was no legitimate laws that governed them, so this justifies me coming and do whatever I want to do with them because they were lawless people. And because they were lawless people, I don't think any standards of the law justify what I'm going to do to them and how I'm doing them. It is good for me, but not good for thee.
Undefined region with no self-governance or borders subject to the laws and rules of the larger empire that controlled it. There was no national identity.
And you know what's crazy about this? Is that when American Zionists, Christian Zionists make this argument right here, they never talk about how the British government lied to the Palestinians and said, hey, listen, if y'all fight for me and we overthrow the Ottomans, I'll give y'all sovereignty. So all this little shit they talking about with the law, for some reason, it didn't apply when it came to the British people trying to figure out how they can convince the Palestinians to fight for their own sovereignty by cooking up with them. So it even showed one or two things or both. Either A, what they saying about the law, specifically when it comes to this region not existing because there was borders and no legal framework, either A, that's bullshit and they did, or B, that didn't really matter when it came to you being able to make them promises that you failed through on. So either you full of shit and it never really mattered, or you don't actually believe what you're saying and it's not true at all. That's what I think that means.
Because there was never a Palestinian state. It was just a region, like the Rocky Mountain region in America. The Ottoman Empire collapsed after.
It was just the region, like the colonized space that we have in the Rocky Mountains. These are the slippages right here, and it's showing you like what Tuck and Yang talk about in terms of the settlers move to innocence. And listen, if you want reference to anything I'm talking about in this video, I definitely encourage you to follow me on Substack. There'll be an article about this that has all the related readings and everything I've referenced. You know what I'm saying? Think about it as a works cited page.
World War I, leaving control over the region in the hands of the British. This started the British Mandate of Palestine. Again, it had that name because of the Romans. Lots of infighting started happening. Zionists proclaimed they'd be happy if they had 1 square foot to call Israel, and the British wanted hands off. After the Holocaust, Jewish refugees fled to Israel. In 1947, the UN partitioned the land, a state for the Arabs and a state for the Jews. The Arab state for Palestine would have the West Bank, Jerusalem, Gaza, Hebron, and several other cities, while the Jews would have Tel Aviv and the land to the south of the West Bank, which was mostly desert, as well as small portions to the north. The Jews were given more land despite having less people, but the Arabs would get the majority of the cities on the land and Jerusalem, which was the holiest site in all of Judaism and the 3rd holiest site in Islam. After the partition, Israel declared independence and the Arabs declared war. The Transjordanian Arab Legion assisted, slaughtering Jews in the old Jewish quarter of Jerusalem and leveling the oldest synagogue in the city. The result of this war, these borders. Except the portions they would have you believe are Palestine aren't. Egypt took control of Gaza and Jordan annexed the West Bank, no Palestine. In 1967, another war ensued. Israel fought a 3-front war against Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, defeating all of them in only 6 days. Israel made massive land claims. These were the new borders. They took the Golan Heights, Sinai, the West Bank, and Gaza. Eventually, most of the Golan Heights and Sinai were given back to Egypt and Syria, respectively. But no Palestinian state was to be seen. In 1988, Hamas was founded, their covenant openly calling for the extermination of all Jews, claiming it as essential to Islam. Fighting continued in Gaza. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew their forces, but
The PLO stands for the Palestinian Liberation Organization. I'm a little country, so I'm gonna mispronounce his name. But the person that was leading it was named Yara Asawat. Yara Asawat was leading a secular movement, unifying Palestinians against, you know what I'm saying, this Israeli colonization they had going on. Bibi Netanyahu, we got videos. We also got evidence that he created Hamas in the 1980s to be able to oppose the secular movement known as PLO. He felt like if they were able to put in reign Islamic terrorists, Islamic radicalism, that it would justify Israel being able to expand and also be able to destabilize the unifying that was happening amongst the Palestinian people. Just like Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all these different entities were used as proxies to be able to insulate different democratic capitalist states from the Russians, from the communists, from the socialists. And then they start figuring out, damn, y'all the ones who should be going there. It's the same thing that's going on right now. You also see that a lot of the destruction that happens to Palestine, even in 2026, they try to justify by talking about the presence of Hamas. You see in this right here, he talking about Hamas was created in 1988. So all of the Antifada, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but y'all know I'm talking about people that listen to it, you know what I'm saying? All this shit happened before 1988. So you see the forces that they try to use to justify the genocide right now that's happening. When you go back, that shit don't even operate. Me learning that Theodore Herzl, the person that started the Israel, you know what I'm saying, started the Zionism and shit, he didn't even believe in God. To me, makes all they claims about Israel and about Abraham become bankrupt because, hey, peep game, man. In America, we had separation of church and state. And we got the freedom of religion. I don't know why it is constitutional for our state to send tax dollars to a ethno-religious state that runs apartheid, that breaks a whole bunch of international laws and American laws when it comes to taking different tools and forces and being able to use it to wage violence and destruction. This is to me white intellectual pathology. This is how white men are able to permute logic one way, or I'm saying, yeah, permute like a permutation, you feel me? Logic in one way, and then be able to say it don't work the other way. It don't matter. This is how a bunch of America is being led right now, by a bunch of incompetent, mediocre white men that have a superiority complex and trying to prove themselves to themselves by being able to obliterate everybody else. And the more they can dominate everybody else, the more they can prove to themselves they are worthy. Whether we talking about Pete Hegseth, whether we talking about Donald Trump, or we're talking about Ronald Reagan, I would argue there's been a bunch of white masculine mediocrity that's been able to ascend itself to the highest realms of power in this country based off of pure projection, insecurities, and a bunch of didn't earn it opportunities.
Maintained ownership. The people living in Gaza democratically elected Hamas as their sole governing authority in 2006, causing Israel to put a blockade in place. This brings us to the modern conflict.
Even this shit right here, right? They love to talk about how Hamas was elected in 2006, but they always love to gloss over how the average Palestinian, like 15, 16 years old right now, meaning they wasn't alive. You killed everybody that was, you know what I'm saying, you could have blamed the election of Hamas on. We ain't even got to hear no more of this guy. I think that how black history is being erased and how black thought leaders and black thought just in his whole has always been came for. To me, it showed that there's always been an incentive to make sure black people don't be able to get the language and be able to get access to education to be able to challenge. Because sometimes the very challenge in itself is seen as the disrespect or seen as the victimization. If you challenge me, you disrespecting me. If you challenge me, you being you victimizing me. And I think that is what Donald Trump is even working on right now. He can't even go along with just regular old decorum of you being the leader of the so-called free world and journalists being able to ask you questions. If he felt too challenged, he feel disrespected. And then he acts like a child. He throws a temper tantrum. Or he forces to go, you know what I'm saying? I'll do this to you, I'll do that to you because you make me feel this way. To me, white men have been able to make emotional intelligence the enemy of, actual intelligence. You feel me? Or I'll say it like that, because that's my indoctrination coming out right there. White men have been able to successfully create emotion as the enemy to intellect. And it's because they've been able to trivialize how their emotion can mobilize the military, how their emotion can mobilize the police, and how everybody else's emotion is seen as being, you're just being emotional. Just pull up another clip, man. So let's see what Joby Wambanobi. The Rockies, like the national park that were previously inhabited before white folks turned them into national parks, or the white folks who turned Aspen from indigenous land into wealthy ski resort, remind us of what the plan of the new Gaza resorts is. To me, also show this, is that the way that we ascribe terrorism onto different people, to me, illustrates the contradiction, the hypocrisy, and the pathology in it. We can have a country that is created by terrorism, that maintains itself through terrorism, and that expands itself through terrorism, while claiming it is the liberators of terrorism. You feel me? While being able to be seen as a good guy. Like that is American patriotism. Like just to give y'all a little ski taste of what I'm getting into right now, man. And not only a ski taste, just what inspired this new project I'm working on right now. I'm gonna be finishing real soon. Real soon. But it's just sitting with some realities. Us as Americans, a lot of us, we care more about the symbolism, the idealism, than the actual reality of what we live in. At the top, it's a picture. This for the people that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you know what I'm saying, iHeartRadio, everybody listen to a podcast outlet. Right now on the screen, I have a video, you feel me? Some would even call it like a little B-roll video from Iraq in 2003 that shows what it looked like for America to spread democracy in Baghdad. And then it shows a similar visual of Iran in 2026 and what it looks like for the U.S. to spread democracy in Tehran. Both of the pictures are destruction, fire that probably comes from a bunch of military equipment that's probably paid for by tax dollars. A lot of us are told that democracy is the highest, a lot of us are told that democracy is the best form of government that we have. And when it comes to fairness and humanity, the best thing we have to protect that is democracy. And we engage in idealistic ideas and the utopian concepts of democracy while being able to negate all of the history that democracy has left behind. See, what blows my mind is that when you go back to the history of democracy, it starts in like 500 BC or some shit like that, 400 BC. And from the beginning, though it was about, everybody being able to get his vote, it was never everybody. Like what's baked into democracy is subjugation of women and exclusion of slaves. I would argue that even to 2026, even if you want to engage in semantics and say that what the Athenians had in democracy and what we have in our republic here in America is not the same thing, you would not be able to negate this visual that I have on the screen. When we go invade Iraq or Iran or Yugoslavia, or I'm putting in front of Yugoslavia, or Argentina or Nicaragua, we do it in the name of spreading democracy or defending democracy. We don't do it behind the republic. So trying to play that game is a no link and does not negate any of the arguments I'm gonna be making right now, real quickly, and when I really get ready to flesh out all the arguments about for why I believe we should abandon the idea of defending democracy and protecting democracy and move beyond democracy as a humanity and understand that because you've been indoctrinated and taught that white men in Athens, Greece, before the modern world even came about, is the best thing that we have. It's the reason why you feel like shit like this is seen as a glitch in the system and not a part of the actual design of it itself. Even when you think about the space and place and context where democracy comes from, it was always about expansion of domination. And again, one of the baked in features, subjugation of women and exclusion of slaves. Even if you want to say, hey, but listen, consciously, the way you think about slavery is inscribed within racism, that is more of the modern world and cannot be applied to antiquity. It does not negate that the individuals that believe democracy is the most legitimate thing is always thinking about which bodies and identities can I extrapolate as being slave-like in any way, shape, or form, or fashion, and then I can trivialize your participation within democracy. Goddamn, every one of the countries we go spread democracy to, we get oil out of it. Even if you want to be some of them people that feel like, our ancestors fought for you to be able to vote, fought for you to be able to do X, Y, and Z, I want us to sit with that fought for. I would argue, in a structured debate, anybody can get it. You feel me? When you speak it, I don't say nothing. When I speak, I don't say anything. That everything that Black people have gained within American democracy has been in spite of democracy and not because of it. Everything that we have in democracy, we have to fight for it and bleed for it. And when you say democracy, I think you talk about in the unalienable rights that's ordained to people by God, by the Creator. That these rights are something that you have a right to that you ain't got to earn. I right to vote. I right to be in the classroom. I right to sit in front of the bus. I right to, be able to take a shit next to white folks. Our ability to, all that we have to fight for it and waste blood for it. So when I say protecting democracy, why? Or what are you defending within democracy? I'm looking at all the material reality that democracy has created and not the idealistic concepts that we spoon-fed when it comes to looking at shit like this right here. Just what I'm going to be getting into is how Trump is a product of democracy. And I'm ending this right here. I ain't gonna be going a long time today. Definitely encourage you to watch, but follow me on Substack if you want access to any of the things I've quoted, specifically when it comes to the journals or the books or the speeches, and if you're looking for some key takeaways, a way to kind of just process all the information I'm kind of throwing at you at once, definitely encourage you to subscribe to the Substack. What's the point I was making, man? Hold on, what used to say? My dad, RIP, used to say, if our government was so great, people would steal it. This was during the Vietnam War. And by the way, ancient Athens was a slave society where women were subjugated. Definitely. I think that a lot of us love to engage in romanticizing all the things that America has taught us is the great way that patriotism do, and has taught us that this justifies American superiority and domination over the world. It's always devoid of all the fucked up things, because if you only look at the fucked up things, then you're being bad. Or let's remove some profanity. That's how they say it. We should only view democracy for all the things that we believe is done good. And if you be critical in any ways as being negative, you just being negative, and you only want to define democracy based off its negativity. But anytime we start talking about socialism or communism, I'm gonna only think about it for its limitations, and only think about it for the way I can think about it being negative. To me, this is a part of how white supremacy, which is really just, a white man delusion that's able to be inscribed onto the world to make it make sense through violence. It's like, yeah, that's an intellectual pathology. The intellectual pathology that says that, hey, I'm gonna prove that I'm right through might. And anytime you try to use might, I'm gonna try to say this is reflective of your humanity. Hey, and being real, Joby, this right here, what we gotta sit with. Not only is Trump a product of democracy, Hitler is a product of democracy as well. There's always ways for us to be able to, I feel like explain away when you have things like examples like this. Trump is not something that's inspired democracy. All of Trump's wealth, all of Trump's legitimacy, all this credibility, all the ways that we view him as being a good businessman, it's all the ways he was able to take advantage of the tools of democracy to benefit himself, to always allow him to be the president of the United States. Even when it comes to the ideas of separation of power, checks and balances, is that really what we see what's going on right now? Is the concept of checks and balances making us immune from all the violence that Trump was able to wreak havoc on the world in America? Is separation of power stopping him from being tyrannical? Right now, a lot of people saying shit. Trump didn't have congressional approval to be able to wage war with Iran. Yeah, we can go back to all the way back from World War II to now. It's been a bunch of things that a whole bunch of different presidents been able to do when it comes to that literally waging war, doing acts of war that didn't have congressional approval. Talking about from Truman to Trump to Obama to Biden, like this is American exceptionalism. This is American exceptionalism. American exceptionalism is really justified by that white delusion that some of us have been, taught to call white supremacy. In this video, what I'm calling intellectual pathology. Intellectual pathology from the social location of white men, and how they can mobilize their delusion and beat up on everybody else for not buying into it. These folks waste all that hell saying that Black people get positions because we're unqualified, because they just be given to us because somebody feels sorry for us. And then you had Trump go make an entire cabinet that's nothing but unqualified. In some instances, I'm disrespecting the actual mediocre white men, talking about the unqualified ones. Because I would say there's a difference. You see what I'm saying? The mediocre ones, sometimes they can be a little qualified, but barely. Donald Trump ain't got none of them. He's surrounding himself by loyalists, and he don't give a damn about your ability to how you perform. Even this. White women being able to benefit and being in proximity to white psychopathology or white male delusion, it's always a double-edged sword. Why I call white women being able to be oppressors. Linda McMahon, the old white woman that has never been in public school, don't even got no degrees, has no background in education at all, can be the Secretary of Education. She's seen as being inherently qualified, even within her white femininity. And even this, the psychopathology of white men has been justified throughout time by being able to say it is in protection of white women. It's the reason why you have so many different examples from the 1600s all the way to now that's been able to justify white men deploying irrational fear or irrational domination or what they call a disproportionate response. You see what I'm saying? Somebody pushed you and you shot them. That like this has been justified in protection of white women in many different instances. As a matter of fact, the white women embodiment of a Karen is an extension of white man intellectual pathology or white man psychopathology that says that I can always be an arm to police and be a vigilant, especially if I believe something isn't the way it's supposed to be, regardless of what the law is. It made me think right now, it's like, hey, white man is wreaking havoc on the country in the name of upholding the law. Taking orders for somebody that has broken the law in more ways than some. It don't get more pathological than that. It don't get more pathological than justifying a bunch of unlawful force by saying you doing it in the name of upholding the law, because if they weren't illegal, then I wouldn't be able to do this, while also looking past, yeah, but your president got over 30 felonies. This is like nothing explained this better. So I'm not just throwing out words, just like really think about this shit. You feel me? And then even this, I like, shout out to you, Joby Wan Benobi. We all being ruled by white Nepo babies. That was literally, hey, you won the birth sweepstakes. You won the birth lottery. You was born to the right family, and as a result, you get given shit, but the shit you given, you see it as you were inherently entitled to it. It belonged to you. You're supposed to have it. Meanwhile, y'all saying DEI stand for didn't earn it. Donald Trump got his son-in-law, I think his name Jared Kushner. Yeah, listen, man, that motherfucker couldn't think through a wet paper bag, but he get to have some power within the United States federal government because because he's sleeping with the president's daughter. He married her, so now he get to have that job. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. Think about if Barack Obama was in office and, you feel me, Sasha and Malia's, her husbands, was able to have position in there. These white folks would throw a fit. It is good for me, but not good for thee. Just these are a bunch of different examples for how our country is being, our country is always operated off the hypocrisy of democracy. I thought in high school, when they taught me the concept of the consent of the governed, I thought like, so how did y'all manipulate the governed consent of Native Americans justifying your existence? You know, just something to sit with, man. I'm finna play a controversial video to get up out of here. That it's still gonna get people in trouble, and potentially still could get me in trouble. It's just thinking about how much has things changed over the past 2 or 3 years when it comes to how white fragility was baked into Zionism in a way. To ask the rhetorical question, does a country have the state to exist? Well, we're able to give individualistic human rights to a nation state in order to, man, let me find this video, man. This white man right here flipped it so good. It was like, I see what you did there, white man. I see what you did there, white man. Why they ain't showing me? Let's see. It's coming up. Hey, and then even just thinking about it, man. White people can have entire networks that's based in them making up shit to criminalize and make people seen as being deviant as people of color. It could be white people that's viewing what I'm saying, and I'm providing receipts to what I got going on, and they still figure out a way to trivialize what I'm saying as being anti-white and not being what they claim they doing when they trying to indict Islam or indict Muslims or indict the Arabs and be based off of exaggerated claims. It's like, hey, I think that empirics on my side. You feel me? Empirics on my side in more ways than some. Matthew Cook, man. You did your thing on this one, Matthew Cook. Let's see. Talking about, I seen the video that was like, oh shit, white man. Y'all ready for this? This one right here was like, yo. Like, hey, yo. Where is it? Right here. Y'all ready for this?
No, of course not. To live in a Jewish state.
Here it is right here.
Does Israel have a right to exist? No, of course not. People have rights. The concept of a state's right to exist is not recognized. To exist is a little rhetorical trick designed to make the rights of certain people disappear. And we have an obligation to dispense with any concepts that deny universal human rights. And this applies to not only every nation, but the entire nation-state concept, which does not have a right to exist. It's an ideology, which we call nationalism, that's brand new, invented less than 250 years ago, and instantly turned into a tool for denying people their universal human rights. Albert Einstein, a Jewish scientist who gave us our most precise understanding of the entire physical universe, called nationalism a disease, the measles of mankind. Erich Fromm, the Jewish psychologist who helped define our understanding of universal basic human needs, called nationalism idolatry and insanity. Hannah Arendt, the Jewish philosopher who survived the Nazi regime, explained that the expansion of European power into non-European territory was not only the prelude to, but the actual beginning of the totalitarian movements. George Orwell, who wrote our textbook on the total loss of human rights, said nationalism is not love of one's country. It is the will to dominate others in its name. All of our greatest minds observed that historically, at the moment that organized religion and royalty ceased to work as a compelling story for the control of populations, a new religion was created that was even more effective for that purpose. A good story has always been the most powerful weapon on earth. Using the revolutionary invention of the printing press, authorities could now mass produce a new story to capture humankind. And that was nationalism. An imaginary group identity based on a cartoonish version of history, glorifying conquerors as saints, turning political texts into holy scrolls, real estate into holy land, dissenters into heretics, and replaces God with the state. A state which demands the standardization of language, the flattening of local cultures. It's an identity management system that gets deployed to keep people kettled into zones and divided from each other, easily conquered and ruled by another aristocracy. And like all New Age religions, nationalism promises individual empowerment, cultural supremacy, safety, and protection from invasion and exploitation. And like every other cult, delivers the exact opposite, which we can see because here we are in our third apex of nationalism in less than 100 years, and over 70% of our world now lives under oppressive regimes with record-breaking inequality and a total collapse of any standards of ethics. The followers of nationalism have reshaped their personalities to reflect their cult leaders and have lost everything of value, their connection to the outside world, their dignity, and any sense of reality. Cult propaganda teaches us all that nationalism is as old as civilization. It's not. The word nation was born as an insult. It was first used by ancient Rome to describe foreigners